What's up, Soul Tribe family, and welcome back to episode 35 of Soul Seed Conversations. I am your host, Soliel. I'm also the owner of Soul Rise Essentials. So this is a mental health podcast for resilient humans on the grow. We exist to share stories of resilience, build global community, and for you to discover new ways to thrive via the brave voices of others. And I cannot wait to share today's guest with you. Her name is Taniki Richards. We'll get Richards, not with the S. Richard. Sorry about that. If you are watching the replay somewhere on another streaming platform or maybe on YouTube, feel free to check the description box and just scroll on to the start of the interview, because this is the part where we just kind of make some announcements. I reconnect with you all since this is being recorded live. If you are new here, again, my name is Soliel Lindsey, and I'm the owner of Soul Rise Essentials, where we specialize in mental health apparel, jewelry, accessories for resilient humans on the grow. And we do this monthly podcast to create community. The community that we are building is called the Soul Tribe family. I just saw somebody join live. What's up, Selena? It's so good to see you. Y'all, it has been a while. It's been a month. We do this each month, and I feel like I've really missed y'all. It's been a lot going on with business, with personal, and I'm still here. Okay, so we're gonna get all up into it. With Soul Rise Essentials, we create mental health apparel for the entire family. It is bright, it is bold, it is colorful. We have jewelry. This is just one of our affirmation necklaces. If you're not familiar with the Soul Tribe family and what it is, we are people that are doing our personal work. Yes, we've been through some things. Yes, our soul has had to rise again, but we didn't stay where we were. We know what it's like to experience life, to maybe hit rock bottom and just to come on right back up. But we do that in community. We are on a healing journey, a wellness journey, and we are just trying to be a better person, not only for ourselves, but in turn, the world. So I always say, join the Soul Tribe family as we change the world by changing ourselves first and look good while doing it, okay, in our merch. So you can always shop our merch at soulriseessentials.com. That's SOLRISE essentials.com. If you're new here, then I have to say this, just a friendly, complimentary trigger warning. Yes, we are sharing some deep topics. Yes, we may get into mental health, but we are not here to diagnose or treat anyone. We are simply humans talking about and sharing our lived experiences. Yes, there will be professionals coming on, but when they're in the soul seat, they're not, they don't have their professional hat on. If you do see a professional from the mental health field on the show, they are just being a human and sharing their lived experiences. So I just want to let you know that there may be things that are shared that may be difficult for you to hear. If it's something that you resonate with and it's a trigger for you, then feel free to just pause, take a chill pill, and honestly get to decide for yourself if it's a conversation that you would like to listen to and take part in. So I always have to say that. We got Taniki in the building. Y'all go to jtinspire.com. We're going to learn more about her in a few minutes and also talk about her businesses and everything that she has going on. I'm so excited for y'all to meet her. You can find all of our episodes, this one and anyone from the past and in the future, on YouTube. You can just go to YouTube and type in Soul Seat Conversations podcast, and we will pop up. If you have a mental health or a resilience story to share, we would absolutely love to hear from you to make sure that it's a good fit. All you have to do is just email us at mystory@soulriseessentials.com, and that's SOL riseessentials.com. We would absolutely love to hear from you and get you on the podcast. We do this once a month and we try to book it up, some months in advance. So catch us while you can. We would love to connect with you. And with all of that said, honey, all the announcements are out of the way. I'm going to bring Taniki in the Soul Seat. How are you?
Oh my goodness. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good, and it's so good to see your beautiful face. Thank you for just
Thank
taking
you.
time and spending time with us today. Before I introduce you, I just want to ask you a quick question. It's a new segment that we're doing here. It's a mental health podcast, so I like to do a check-in. In this moment right now, on a scale from 1 to 5, how is your mental health?
Oh, I would say it's a 4.
Okay.
Really good.
I like to hear it. I always ask my guests that just to give people like a live picture and view of that. It's always changing. I ask, like, in this moment, how are you feeling? Because you could have been feeling completely different before, yesterday, when you get off. So I love to just kind of paint that picture of just how it could change. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as me, okay, it has been a trying couple of weeks. I would say in this very moment, I feel very good. I went for a run this morning, cleared my mind, prayed, meditated. So in this moment, I'm about a 4. But prior to, I'm not gonna lie, about a 2. Trying to get back up there. So yeah, I like to just kind of do a check-in. So Taniki,
Yes.
I want to introduce you. You are a military wife, a mom of 2 sons, a retired USMC, that's Marine Corps veteran,
Yeah.
co-founder of JT Inspire LLC. You are a co-author of Principles for Change, a keynote speaker, and an emotional intelligence group facilitator. Did I get all of that right?
You got all of it correct.
Oh my gosh. So tell us your name, Taniki. I think it's so unique.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Where does that come from?
Well, my mom, I come from a Caribbean background. My family's from Trinidad. So I asked my mom, I actually didn't know what my name meant a long time ago when I was in school. And they asked us, hey, can you research your name? And I found out that my mom named me. Um, she named me and said that my name meant
Okay.
wise. So if your mama names you, I mean, is there anybody else in the world to give definition to you if she birthed you? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
she said it meant wise, and I've been trying to live up to that ever since.
And I think you do. I don't know you very well personally, but we
Yeah,
met maybe about a year and a half ago at an event
yeah.
that honored, was it 70 or 75 years of women being in the military at the
75
time? Which is
years. Yes,
a long time. But we met at an
it is.
event in Richmond, Virginia. They were honoring, that I guess legacy, I could say, but a privilege and a right, to be honest. I was happy to be in the room. And I met you because I saw that you, I think you spoke as well, but I remember you doing a poem. I didn't see poet on this introduction, but I think you did a poem, right?
That is correct. Usually when I do my keynote speaking, I do add a little twang of poetry in there. So sometimes I put poets, sometimes I don't. I haven't done spoken word in a very long time, so I've usually just kind of incorporate it into my speeches. But yes, at that event, I did an ode to our military servicemen, and it was called The Patriot. You could actually look it up on YouTube, called The Patriot. Put Taniki Richard, otherwise Mel Gibson might come up.
Mm.
You don't want that from the movie. But if you really want to hear the speech, you can hear it on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, I loved it. I think it's unique. It's something that none of us in the room probably expected. And so you do bring that flair and your own personality and authenticity wherever you go. Like I said, I don't know you very much, but that's what I get from you.
Yeah,
And I think when we allow ourselves to be exactly who we are, we shine in our uniqueness and authenticity. It does give permission to other people. They may need it for whatever reason, but it does give people permission to really just be themselves.
yeah,
And something else I noticed about you, like I know you said your name means wise. I do think that the things that you've been able to, um, I guess, get out of your life experiences, that is wisdom. So I do think that you're definitely walking in that. And names have power. So when we name our children, they definitely embody those
yeah,
things. So even if they get off on a different track, they'll get back on. That name is powerful.
absolutely.
So
That's
you,
absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I just wanted to say your light shined in the room down where we met. I think it was on second level. And, I was kind of visiting each place, and you just was just a ball of your podcast, Soul, Rise, Sunshine. It Essentials is actually what you embody.
Wow.
And watching some of your interviews and stuff, I was just like, yeah, when you asked for us to do this collaboration here today, I was like, absolutely. Anytime you
Yeah.
can get in front or partner with someone and share that energy with someone who has that pure, genuine heart to care for people and take care of folks, I mean, it's a privilege. So thank you for having me on here.
Oh, I wish you could see me because I got a big old smile. I'm over here smiling. Thank you for
Yes,
that.
I can
And
hear your smile. I can hear your smile.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And honestly, it's another reason why I do this segment where I ask you to kind of rate your mental health, because I want people to
Mhm.
see, even though we show up and we present a certain way, we all got stuff going on. So even in this moment, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling Very excited about this podcast and to share space with you. Like you said, your light also shines bright, so that's uplifting. But that's not how we are 100% of the time. We ebb and we flow. And I was also speaking to a friend of mine about you last night, and they were like, "Well, who is she? How did you meet her?" So I was telling them, I'm like, she's been through some
Yeah.
things, but she still is able to embody a light, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
A lot of us, when we go through things, I was just talking about earlier before you came on here, we're not strangers to adversity, to trauma, to life experiences,
Yeah.
hardship, but it's what you decide to do with it. And people who have that light, we done been through some things, okay?
Yeah.
It's a lot of darkness you got to go through in order to shine the way that we do. So
Yeah.
listen, I'm gonna pat both of us on the back, give both of us our kudos. So Taniki, where do I want to start? Because I have so many notes from our pre-interview. And before we start, I wanted to before you get in your story, there's another segment where we do like a mindful moment. I'm not sure if you've seen that in any of the podcasts.
Yes.
But we're gonna do that real quick just to kind of like recenter ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
we both had things going on before we turned on the podcast. So let's just recenter and then we're gonna get into it.
Okay.
So what I like to do is it's one form of box breathing, and it's very simple. It's very accessible. I always tell people, if you got breath in your body, you can do this. So you just kind of relax yourself, and then what we're gonna do is take 4 breaths in, and then we're gonna hold it for 4 seconds, and then we're gonna exhale for 4 seconds, and we'll do that 4 times. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Breathe in for 4. 4 and hold. 3, 2, 1, and exhale. All right, we're gonna do that one more time. And in for 4, and hold. 3, 2, 1, exhale. One more time. In for 4, and hold. 3, 2, 1, out. Last one. This time I won't count. How do you feel?
Oh, wonderful, excellent, fabulous, magnificent.
I love it. Shout out to Asher. I see you in the comments. Hey, sis. Okay, so let's get into this background. You said you have Caribbean roots. Is that what you said earlier?
That's what I said. Yes, Trinidad.
How long have you been in the States?
Well, no, I was actually American born right there in Texas, Big Tex. And
Yes.
My mom and dad were in the Army when they came over. They were immigrants from Trinidad coming over to America when they were in their teens and 20s. And so I was born here in Texas and traveled all over. Like, I mean, from California, North Carolina. I was spent time in Miami, South Carolina, all over the East Coast, New Jersey, New York, you name it. I've been on East, West, South.
Now, were your parents military as well?
Yeah, they were in the Army.
Okay.
My dad spent about 2 years in the Army, and then my mom did about 6 years in the Army.
Okay, and you had 6 siblings.
Yes. Well, I have 7 siblings, but my older sister, I didn't grow up with her. I'm the second oldest of the 7 that I grew up that my mother had.
Okay.
And my father, he was married before. He had a daughter, and she is my older sister. So
got it.
We reconnected many years later, and we're just as close now as ever.
I love that. So did you follow the military footsteps behind your parents, or was that just a personal decision that you made?
I felt like it was a necessity, mainly because the way I grew up, even though my parents, they were highly intelligent people, they didn't take the opportunity that I felt, even as a young child, that they were smart, but the streets got to them. And they fell on hard times, started using drugs after they got out the Army. My mom actually got out on a medical discharge because they had asked for her to deploy or go to Germany without her children, and she just couldn't handle it. Any mother knows, like, that is one of the hardest things. If you're a good mother and you do miss your children, there's some moms out there that just, hey, they out there in them streets. But, you know, the moms that care about their kids, to be separated for them for a year is, I mean, devastating. And so she could not deal with it. She fell into a deep depression, and she was actually medically discharged, and that's how she got out. But because of that, you know, they both were not stable, and they kept having children because, you know, even still back then, even though there was a TV, you know, they didn't have a lot of channels. So they just kept having kids. And we grew up homeless at times, in the worst parts of the neighborhoods that you could possibly think of. And I've been to like 6 different high schools. You know, I got held back in the first grade mainly because at the time, I couldn't read. I didn't know my vowels. I didn't know how to read because we were out of school so much and just hustling on the street, begging for money. First things I learned was how to fill a need by begging on the streets for money. We spent most of the times in motels, and I was saying that the Motel 8 back in the day was treacherous. It was grimy, dirty. It wasn't like Motel 6. You know, even now they kind of somewhat decent, but back then, no. And so we're talking about sickness, ringworm, mold. And I remember the worst times we were in California on Skid Row. I don't know if anybody knows that part of LA. Skid Row was the worst, the filthiest, the grungiest of the grunge that you could find people that lived on the streets. And we were there for a little while, and it was just my mother, my father, who, you know, both of them are still living. I'm estranged from them now, mainly because of the toxic relationship that they had. They never got healed. And even though I tried to maintain a relationship with them, it was just too toxic for me. And I knew I had to step away. But I was very, very, very close to them. And so to give them up was one of the hardest things I had to do. Next to leaving my son when I went to deploy in Iraq. But some of the things that we endured as children, and I only can speak for myself, I can't speak for my other siblings, but for me, it was horrible. The abuse, the physical abuse, the verbal abuse, the sexual abuse that I endured when I was a child, catapulted me into this person I am today. But the dark times came when I couldn't face the fact that I was carrying so much of this weight and this burden that was placed on me by my parents. And so, it was challenging.
Yeah, it was. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think I thought of a phrase when you were talking because I feel like you embodied this very well. I have packed light on a lot of my merchandise, and I feel like the tough decision that you had to make to give your parents up and whatever else, I'm sure those are not the only things you had to give up to live the life you're able to live now, but you had to put some stuff down that didn't necessarily belong to you. And people always ask me, what does pack light mean? I'm like, it means a lot of different things. To shine your light, you know, to be emotionally light, and you were able to put those things, especially with family members, and you having to put down 2 people that gave you life. That is not an easy thing to do.
No.
And it's not something that we're necessarily advocating for, but there are some treacherous things that people go through in their lives at times where you really have no other choice if you want to thrive. And I know it's uncomfortable for people to hear, especially when you're talking about mom and dad, but your story is a shining example of this is something I had to do, or I was going to be down the same road that was, you know, that they were on.
Yep.
Are you still there with me?
That's absolutely correct. Yep, I'm here. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And you know, I did a podcast a couple of years ago, right? And the lady, she wanted me to basically say I hated my parents, like for the things that they did. And I wouldn't give her that because it wasn't my truth. There are things where I had to be clear on the fact that even though I understand what they did was wrong, they made some very poor choices, and I had to suffer. My siblings had to suffer because of those things. Um, Something about children that survive trauma and are still able to keep their light intact. There, you have a deeper understanding of suffering, and you see the other person more than you would ever be able to see another person. You see, and I think, sometimes trauma, when you survive it, it gives you a superpower. It highlights your heart in a way where you can love deeper, you can understand deeper things that are more so complex emotionally. We understand them deeply. And I think that a lot of people who haven't gone through chronic trauma, and I said that chronic trauma, like constant, and went through the trenches, they don't really understand that. So the initial understanding of that is to hate the thing that did that to you, or reject it in a way where you cut off all communication. Now I'm saying I did that for me. The communication part I did cut off for me, but I don't judge people who don't or can't cut off communication with their parents, because that tie there is so deeply ingrained. It's in your DNA.
It's who
you see what I'm saying? That you don't, it's who you are. And if you don't take the time to unlock that DNA and fully break away from that, the things that you learned trauma wise from your parents, you can't see them as human. You won't be able to see them. You'll forever keep putting them on a pedestal. And I didn't want to do that. I have this way that I understood what they went through. They too were abused. They were abandoned. They were hurting. And I understood that. And so that compassion level, I think, was hard for me to discuss at the time, where even I understood it. But when I was sharing it, it just gave them like a bad taste in their mouth. Like, how could you forgive them in a way where you would be able to speak to them still kindly with respect or some level of love? And I had to explain this. Forgiveness is a gift for yourself, you see. And so there's deep levels of forgiveness. Some people choose how they want to go about that. But I have to put that out there here that I told her, I said, it's okay if you don't hate them. You don't have to, because carrying that in itself is a pain and a stressor that I didn't want.
Yes. A pain, a stressor, and a poison that you keep drinking and giving to yourself. That I got a lot of things I want to touch on and unravel. When you share what you said about, and this is said out of love and understanding, right? When people don't understand our thought process, especially while you're on a healing and wellness journey, you got to be tough and resilient enough to not let what other people say. And how do I phrase this? People's thoughts, you don't have to let them be imposed on you. That was their opinion. And I know you already know this. I'm just kind of speaking this out for other people to hear. But, we can love people and respect them. But this is our journey that we're on. Nobody's felt our pain. Nobody's been through our experiences. And so what people are able to receive from you and what you've been through and how you perceive what you've been through and how you heal through that, that's their own stuff. That's their own projection of how they feel. And again, I say that out of love and understanding. And maybe one day they'll be in a different space and be able to say, you know what, she had to do some deep, hard work to even get to the place where she understands her parents on a humane level. Because that's something I've had to do, and it was not easy. I'm still doing it. And to go through the things that you've gone through, especially with, the sexual abuse and the physical abuse from one of your parents, that's a hard thing to do. But like you said, it was something that you had to do for you, because then you carry, all of your darkness with you wherever you go. But you are like, no, let me really process this. My parents were abandoned. They were abused. So it's a cyclical thing that was happening, but you decided to stop it. and change the trajectory of your life, not just your life, but anybody, your children, their grandchildren. And so everybody's not able to understand that. And that's what I love about being able to have these conversations, because it just puts a different perspective out there. It's like, okay, you know, if you are on in a space where you still hate X, Y, and Z, we're not shunning you for that. That is your process, your experience. But here is my story, my experience. So thank you for sharing that.
And I will add to that to say, you don't necessarily have to be tough when you're sharing that part and you're saying, hey, I have healed to the deep levels of my DNA. And so, no, I look at it differently. You have to be sure. Be sure about your process. Be sure that you know what you're saying is truth for you. And so once you have that, it doesn't really matter. It might even hurt your feelings. You might even feel a little bit like, well, dang, why can't I share my experience? And you have yours, and we just understand each other as different.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, you can be sure that this process is your own. And guess what? If it's feeling good to you and you know that you're doing the work, then be sure in that and carry on.
And carry on. I love how you put that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else that you want to share about like your upbringing and the different things that you experienced as a child?
Well, you know, me being a personality, the person that loves to be the rock and the cheerleader and the supporter. When I say I love you fully, and I want to see you winning, okay? Win. And if I can do anything to help you in that process, I'm the girl. I'm the one. I'm that woman that's going to help you. I've been like that since I was a child. And knowing that that was a gift now, I know that now that was a gift. It was a deep burden when I was younger, because being the second oldest of 7, I had to carry those kids on my back. You know what I mean? Make sure they ate, make sure they got to school, make sure that, you know, as I was hustling on the street, I was doing it not just for me. Oftentimes, I didn't even think about myself. I was thinking about my little brothers and sisters, how they're going to eat, Pampers, milk, those type of things. And even though I'm sure, you know, my parents, they provided something, you know, they did something, we were left to our own devices. And so for me, having that unsurmountable pressure of performing and making sure someone else was okay, it pushed me into a place where I knew I needed to do something else, so that I can show my siblings that, you know, there's an example out there, that you don't have to go down the path that our parents went down. And I took it on for myself. A lot of times I think I struggled with codependency issues, you know, the things that I did not know before. But if you know anything about codependency, there is a wide array of symptoms that come along with that, psychological things that come along with that, that affect your personality and your development. And my parents, they literally had us brainwashed into doing what they said out of fear, out of desire to please. It was like this people pleasing. If I didn't provide money, I wasn't a good child. So I had to show them that I loved them, that I cared about them, by working like a dog to make sure that they had their drug money, to make sure they had their liquor money. And these things, it never surmounted to anything good, obviously, but what did it teach me about my self-worth? I didn't know I had low self-esteem when I joined the military. I thought that I was okay. But those things that I say, hindsight 2020, those things that keep you from laying down healthy boundaries, it comes from the way you were raised and your upbringing, and what were the messages that were given to you without anything being said. So like, if I didn't do something that they wanted, I wouldn't get the praise and the hugs and the love. If I didn't do what they wanted, I would get beat or whooped. And so what does that teach you? They're not saying that you're not a valuable person, Taniki, but what they showed me is that if I don't do for you, I'm nothing. You see what I'm saying? And so going into the military, I carried that, those unforeseen messages. And if you know anything about trauma, which I know you do, those blind spots are the ones that are the sleeper. Those are the killers.
That's it.
The blind spots that we have in ourselves. Those are the things that hinder you from forgiveness, from healing, from speaking your truth, from allowing healthy boundaries in your life, those blind spots. And unfortunately, it took all of my childhood and the things that I went through to place those seeds there, those blind spots there. But I'm very, very thankful, very, very thankful now that I have seen the light.
Okay, hello, step into the light, honey.
Come on.
I can't wait to get into your military career and experience. Before we get into that, I love how you are touching on essentially how childhood trauma, and I don't know if you're familiar with ACEs, but adverse childhood experiences, how those experiences shape us and become us, but they don't have to be who we end up being ultimately, right?
Correct.
So I read a book called what was that book called? It was called The Deepest Well. If you've never read it before, check it out. It was how I got introduced to ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. There's also a website that you can go to get your ACE score. And I already know mine will be high. I already know from what I know about you, yours will be high. And it's not a doom and gloom type of thing, right? But to know where you are and to know how much you've experienced and why there are certain health ailments that pop up in your life, mental health problems, substance abuse problems, it makes that connection, because a lot of people really try to say that childhood experiences, that doesn't affect us. It has nothing to do with why I am the way I am. And it's mind-boggling to me. And what I'm working on in my current my current phase of, I guess, personal development is understanding why people feel the way they feel and not shunning them or calling them stupid or whatever for how they feel. I think there's a certain emotional maturity you have to have when you do come into a knowing about certain things. Just because other people don't know it, you can't, they're no less than you, right? And so that's something that I'm working on right now. But it does kind of, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around when people say that, because those things really they follow us wherever we go, even at work. You might be a workaholic because of your trauma, but while you're at work, how you're interacting with people, do you procrastinate, are you showing up, that stuff comes from somewhere. You don't just wake up and become these things. So I love how you've been able to identify why you are or were the way that you were, and how you were able to unravel some of that stuff, and the things that you had to unlearn, the boundaries that you had to put up, the lightness that you had to carry, but it was some stuff that you had to put down in order for you to pick that back up. So thank you for being honest and real about that, because there are people out there that really feel like there's no connection. And so I like to talk about the adverse childhood experiences, the ACEs, because if you're unaware and just don't know, some of the stuff that we think is normal, like people smoking in the house when we grew up, people drinking in the house when we grew up, that's not normal. But there are things, those are things that we've experienced. It was part of our culture. But you wake up one day and you realize, dang, everybody got COPD in my family, everybody got asthma, everybody's alcoholic, and these are just symptoms of a larger problem. And so I love how you are able to be on the other side and say that I've done this work. Has it been easy? Absolutely not. But when you make those connections and you don't deny them, then it helps you, get on a better path and start healing and become a well person. So I just love that.
I will say though, I will say though that there are some stupid people out there in the world though.
My mama hate when I say that. She said, you need to stop saying that.
It's the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. There are some things that just don't make sense when they come out of people's mouth. And you just have to know that, you know what, give them some grace. But I'm not going to change my mind. Like, if you're saying something that don't make sense.
How you feel, not how I feel.
But no. I mean, if it's a you feel, I feel, it's fine. Right? Because you can feel how you feel and I can feel how I feel. And that's fine. I'm not going to judge that. But when people like try to make things like facts and it's not facts, it's not, and they think they smart, but they're actually stupid. That's why the word is there, because they're not, the word is there for a reason. for you to use it appropriately.
That's right.
But I get what you're saying as far as, just judging based off of, what your mind to heart to spirit cycle is doing.
Exactly.
When you're interacting with folks, yes, you want to make sure that you are not having some preconceived judgment about whatever it is that they're going through in their life. And it's like, what? That is so stupid.
Right.
Like, why would you do that?
Right. And that's an authentic statement that you just made. Thank you for saying that. So
I understand. I feel you. I understand what's going on.
So when we talked in our pre-interview, you said you had a deep sense of duty, and I relate to that. I've never actually heard anybody say that. I'm an Aries. We're very we're leaders. We're passionate. We just gonna get it done, right? Don't ask us. We just gonna get it done. You ain't gotta ask us. We just gonna get it done, right? And so you being the oldest, I have a twin sister, and I'm quote unquote older by 1 minute, but you've got other siblings, and you were like you said, the second oldest of the six. Not the seven, but that sense of duty, I'm sure, came from you being the oldest. And like you were saying earlier, I think that same sense of duty is what led you to eventually just go to the military. You're like, okay, I'm hustling, I'm getting it, but this ain't it. This cannot be it. So I think what I heard you say, or what I interpreted what you were saying, is that you needed a way out, and maybe the military was one of those ways out for you.
Oh, absolutely. It was not just one of the ways, it was the only way. And mainly because my mother had it that way. She wanted to make sure, even though she was messed up, in her own way, I believe she tried to love me the best that she could. And one of the things that she did, I was so concerned about leaving my siblings and for having this deep sense of duty that I started to renege. I wanted to take a couple steps back. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be a dancer, and not stripping on the pole. I meant, choreography, like Fatima. I don't know if you know that choreographer.
Yeah.
Her name is.
Yes.
I really looked up to her. I loved her so much. She inspired me to continue to dance, and I love dancing. And so I wanted to get a degree in it. And so I wanted to go to college for that. And my mom was like, even though she believed that was an admirable thing to do, she was like, no, you need to get out of this area, join the military, get yourself together, not just to say, obviously if I'm going to college, I'm not bringing in any checks every 2 weeks. So there was a other motive behind that. If I'm in the military, they know that I'm getting that steady income and they're going to take my checks.
Yep.
They was going to take them checks, but it did actually help me to not stay home and look after my siblings and fully move on with my life and move forward. But I knew that was the way out. For me, I felt like the Army wasn't the best choice for me, and I joined the Marine Corps because I wanted the challenge. Who told me to do that?
I was just about to ask you, because I don't know a whole lot about these different branches, honey. But when I hear Marines and all of that stuff, I'm like, wait, is that the most how is it a ranking system? Tell me more.
Okay, for people who are listening, if you try to get me on this, I don't listen. I can't. The truth is the truth. Everybody know the Marine Corps is the most prestigious branch, even though they call us the most, jarheadish, or we're not the smartest in the bunch. They try to say Air Force, sailors, the Navy, Air Force, and the Army. They try to say the Marines, we're the ones that go first to fight, and we chew on crayons, right?
But okay, that's the reputation for the Marines.
Yes, but everyone knows when we put on that uniform, we have the prestige, we have the toughness. It's that next level of military where everywhere you go, whether you did 4 years in the Marine Corps or 20 or 30 years in the Marine Corps, if you're a Marine, you're well respected. But joining the Marine Corps and then going to sea school, I had this level of ignorance, thinking that honor, courage, commitment meant that for everyone. I was an upstanding person. I was there to try to be an upstanding person. Why wouldn't everybody else be upstanding? My sister, she warned me, don't take any drinks from guys, that are, if the bottle's already open, actually don't even take drinks from guys, period. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's how they're going to try to get me. I didn't go clubbing. I met this guy at a library. Yes,
Oh,
at a
wow.
library. Yeah. And I took myself to the movies. I went bowling. I used to do stuff. I was like a real outward kind of nerd in a
Mhm.
way where I, I wouldn't say I was a goody two shoes, but I really kind of kept to myself, always trying to do what was right
Mhm.
and in my heart, right?
Mhm.
So I met this guy at the library and I trusted him immediately, not knowing that he already had sinister plans for me. And
Mm.
he asked me out on a date. This is the first time a guy asked me out to. We went to on-base movie, and he was already in the Marine Corps. I was still in C school, so I was still going to learn my job, and so the bases kind of combined, where there was a student side, and then there was like permanent personnel. So
Mhm.
that's how I met him, not knowing that he was already being discharged out of the military in a few weeks, and
For the
he,
same type of
for
behavior?
bad, poor
Wow.
behavior. I found these things out later, and he slipped something in my drink. Now, I didn't think that he would because we were in his room, and he slipped something in my drink behind the fridge when he went to get the drink. And I took just a couple of sips, and within the first 5 minutes, I felt way more was now my family's from Trinidad, so we had a party every
Mhm.
weekend basically, and they let you drink a little something here and there growing up at the house parties, right?
Yeah.
So I knew what liquor felt
Right.
like. It wasn't like that was my first time having a sip. But in the Marine Corps, being underage, if you drank and you got caught, you would be reprimanded and even busted down. It was like zero tolerance. They had a lot of issues on the base at the time. If you were caught drinking underage, you would get in trouble. So here I am doing wrong,
Mhm.
drinking with this guy, and he slipped something in my drink and proceeds to have his way with
Mhm.
me the whole night. I couldn't fight. I couldn't yell. I couldn't scream. And in that moment, I knew I had been drugged. Um, and I was very, very scared. And there's this part of you in survival when you're being assaulted, if you can recollect, for me, it was my choice to then give up
Yep.
because the latter would have been um, feeling like I was being taken advantage of. So
Mhm.
in my mind, I said, well, I came here.
Mhm.
It happened in a
Mhm.
second. I came here. I took the drink. I must have wanted this
Mm.
because to think the latter, that he was actually taking advantage of me, was too much to bear. You
Mm.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So psychologically, that happened in a second. The moment I realized I couldn't fight, I couldn't scream, and I couldn't say no anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And so when that happened, the next day, he proceeded to be nice to me. He was like, hey, how are you feeling? He even took me to the bathroom a couple of times. The door opened up several times throughout. So I don't know if it was just one person
Wow.
or if it was several people,
Wow.
you know. And so the next day I proceeded to put my clothes on and I was confused. You know what I mean? Because when when that type of thing happens, it's I started thinking about my
Mhm.
career, how I got to this point, why I joined the Marine Corps. I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to lose my rank. And so I just shoved it down inside and said, well, this is what I deserve. This is what I asked
Mhm.
for. I should have never came to his room. And so I started blaming myself because if I would have blamed him, then the story would get out. And
Mhm.
then my command would know that I was drugged by drinking.
Mhm.
And there was a case about a week or two before that where the young lady actually said she was forced into sex, but she had been drinking. And not only
Mhm.
did the man not get reprimanded because there was no proof, she got busted down and almost kicked out for underage drinking.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that was the nature of the military, that they would not stand up for the victims. They would find ways to reprimand them or quiet them in a way where it just silenced your voice. And so before anyone else could silence my voice, without me thinking about it, I silenced my own voice.
Silence your own voice. I have a note here. Thank you for sharing all those details.
Yeah.
I have a note here that you said, I'm not sure if it relates to this specific story, but you said you had to take accountability for some of the things that happened in your life. And you had mentioned that you said, I broke me. What are your feelings about that? And do you remember that statement? Uh-oh, we got the internet problem again. Hey, y'all, type down in the comments and let me know if y'all can still hear me. We're having some connectivity issues today. Thank y'all for joining us. Shout out to the Soul Tribe. Yes, no problem. Her story is so powerful. I wish we didn't have to experience these little hiccups, but y'all know we do over here. We authentic. We're going to keep it rolling. Ain't nobody perfect. We're going to get through this thing. I'm sure she'll come on back. How are y'all enjoying this story? And do you know any people in the military that may have experienced this, or somebody going into the military? You just kind of want to share her story with them, male or female, just so they are aware of these different rules and different branches and different experiences. And, you know, you just want to let them know that be mindful, essentially. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Her story is just so powerful, and I just love her perspective on things. I've shared this before and earlier in this episode, how like some of the things that we go through, it can feel like it's breaking us, but I'm also choosing to look at it like it's just cracking you open for another little virgin to peek out that you didn't even know was there. But I think it's just how we handle adversity. And you know, there's so many of us that just don't make it to a point where they can see that healing is possible or see that wellness is possible. And I'm just grateful to be on this side and to be able to share not only Taniki's story, but so many of you. As you're in the comments, you've shared your story on our podcast before. Our resilience is just so comforting. You know, when you see other people that have gone through things in life and you see that they made it over, it does kind of give a hope and a permission to you that like, man, I could keep going and try to figure this thing out. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. But it's so possible. And that is what this podcast is all about. As you said, it's very powerful, and her resilience is so inspiring. My goodness, seriously. It's like she's just so confident. It oozes off of her. And the fact that she's been able to achieve and do so many things in her life and still find it okay to come on my little podcast and share her story with me, not even being somebody that she knows very well, is I'm grateful for that. But you can see things in people, and I have an ability to recognize, even without talking to people very long, I'm like, it's something in there. They have been through some things, but they came out on the other side. And people need to meet those people. People need to hear those stories. Ahmed says, very impactful. I have seen the strength firsthand. Listen, shout out to you for being a real king and for being a place of comfort for her and being able to hold her hand and walk with her throughout this journey in her life. Listen, we rolling. We trying to get through this thing, man.
We doing it. We're gonna make it. Yes. It's adapt. In the Marine Corps, they say adapt and overcome.
Come on.
So
that's what we doing.
Listen, that's what we're doing right now. And I was watching a little bit of your comments to the listeners, and their comments is very thank you guys. And I'm hoping that we're feeding on. Everyone has a story, so I'm happy that it's giving life here.
Yes, it's life-giving. Even though these conversations are not easy, when you hear about how did they overcome, how are they overcoming, because sometimes we don't arrive. To me personally, I feel like healing is not a destination. It's just a way of life. Yeah. You start learning to bounce back, because as you said earlier, life is going to life. Things are going to happen, but we have to learn how to bounce back. And sometimes we can't do that on our own. I got God, I got the Soul Tribe family, I got my friends, my personal Soul Tribe. But that's what this community is. We're learning to do it together. You don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah. So where did we leave off?
Child, we left off at I think you were saying, how the guy he didn't get reprimanded, how some people, you know, these things happen to them, but they end up getting in trouble for it. That's what
Yes. And that's the nature of, what my experience in the Marine Corps from an early on stage, it taught me. Like I said, there's these silent teachings that happen along the way where no one's actually giving the verbal confirmation that these are truths.
Yeah.
But from these experiences, you pull, and these are how those kind of understandings become a blind spot. Where they say, well, when you voice your abuse, you're going to get reprimanded because that is the nature of what's happening. You're seeing it happen. So I told myself in my mind, okay, that's what's going to happen to me. So I told myself a false truth and placed that in a blind spot where I didn't see it later, because once it becomes in that blind spot, it's in your subconscious. You're not conscious of these decisions that you make after that.
Absolutely.
And so that's what happened in that time. And I believe I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
So 19 years old. There's statistics out there that said if you were sexually abused as a child, I'm not going to give the percentages, a higher percentage that it will happen to you again between the ages of 18 and 25.
My God.
And I stumbled across that article a long time ago, but it rang true to me because the same situations and the things, because psychologically what it does to you is saying when someone takes advantage of you at such a young age, your boundaries either become very, very loose or very, very strict. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And without learning and understanding that your body, you have autonomy, and your body is supposed to be protected and not supposed to be touched in inappropriate ways, there's a level of understanding when you get older. It's still being young between ages 18 and 25. That frontal lobe is not all the way fully developed. You're now making decisions where ignorantly about how people have access to your body and what's okay and what's not okay.
Yes, and thank you for saying that, because that part of your brain is not fully developed. I think until like your mid-20s, probably late 20s actually, you're making decisions even though you've grown, and the law says at 18 you've grown. You are not making grown people decisions. And then when the trauma occurs, that's what the ACEs talks about. It literally alters how you think, how you behave, how you make decisions. So it's like you're living with that trauma, and that trauma is guiding you, is making decisions for you and everything. So to address it, and until you unlearn it and speak to them like, hey, we don't believe that no more. We don't behave like that no more. And so that's the work that you've been able to do. But again, is it easy? Absolutely not. But I am so proud of you for digging deep and allowing yourself to overcome things like betrayal of your trust from your family, from the military. Like you said, you openly stated, I was let down. I'm thinking that this is supposed to be, my come up. And then as soon as I get here, not long after, somebody little kind man at the library takes advantage of me. You know what I'm saying? So that alters how you trust yourself, because it's like, man, here I am thinking I made a good decision. I met a quote unquote good guy. I won't drink and I won't party. I'm at the library minding my business. And so kudos to you for not beating yourself up for too long, because it's natural. It'll happen. You beat yourself up and blame yourself, but thank you for the work that you did on yourself, because now you're able to speak to us and be like, yo, we ain't got to believe that no more.
Yeah. And, I think this is the first time where I realized, hindsight, that the overdevelopment of my shadow self. And so not being in touch with the shadow self, I don't know if people are familiar with that term. It's not an alternate ego. It is the side of you that is repressed desires, repressed truths, things that are about yourself that need to be mastered, and they are not tended to. Most times, the shadow self will live with the trauma that you're enduring, And the shadow self can come out in really horrible ways, sometimes sporadically at a moment's notice, or over time you turn into this person and people are like, I don't even know you no more. Well, that's because your shadow self done took over. It is you.
It is.
But it's the unrefined portion of you. Now, most times when you tend to your shadow and you love your shadow self and you commune with that other person, that other part of you, and accept them and love them and forgive them and show them understanding, you become one. So it's like a torn part of yourself that you're not acknowledging and trying to repress. And the shadow self is not to be repressed. Your shadow self protects you. It allows people not to take advantage of you. When you say no, that's your shadow self saying, no, absolutely not. The shadow self is wise. It understands things that your light self may not necessarily care about. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm loving people, I'm loving life. And now if you came at that with every person and everything, you would definitely get messed up in this world. You know what I mean? You need your shadow self. You need to reconcile with your shadow self, and not let your shadow self bear all the trauma on its own, because it will blow up. And that's exactly what happened to me. I tried to repress my shadow self from sexual abuse, from war. Back in 2007, I went to combat and could not believe that these things were happening. I went to war knowing that I grew up in the ghetto where people was getting shot at. I seen things that you wouldn't even imagine. People being shot at, stepping over blood pools going to my school bus. You see what I'm saying? In my neighborhood. And people getting shot in the face walking off the city bus. This is where I grew up. And so to me, I was like, oh, I can handle a little pew pew. You know, I can handle that. That's not a problem. Going to war is not a problem until you get there and you're like taking on enemy ground fire and you're rethinking your whole life. And that's exactly what happened to me. I already had my son at the time. I was separated from my ex-husband, who was also emotionally abusive and manipulative. And I was separated from him. And the first 3 weeks I was out in Iraq, I experienced combat. And I was there for 13 months, about 13 months. And I remember thinking I wouldn't come home to my son. And this is still a very difficult subject, mainly because the emotion behind knowing that the moment you feel like you're going to die, the moment you feel like you are helpless and can't do anything about this outcome. We were in a helicopter and had the enemy shot us out the air. There would be nothing I could do. There was no parachute that I could jump into to save my life. And that was a very real moment, to know that my 1-year-old son would never see me again. And all because men that I trusted to complete the mission wanted to go back into a danger area and shoot bullets. That's what they wanted to do for the last night mission. And that was off course. Like, we were not supposed to do that. We were supposed to go from one foreign operating base to another. And again, trusting these men with my life to make sure I got home safe. They wanted to do what in the Marine Corps we call getting some. It was like they wanted to get some and shoot off and blow off steam, because this was their last night mission. Didn't care about me or the Marine that I was traveling with the secret equipment. And so, you know, needless to say, I suffered from a lot of trust issues. And it made me have a chip on my shoulder. The way I dealt with men in the military was wildly, I would say, unorthodox. Because in one moment, I would love and trust them enough to try to marry a man. And then the next moment, I would hate them to the core of their guts.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Try to beat them up. You see what I'm saying? And so I would have these conflicts with these men where I had this huge chip on my shoulder where if you showed your teeth to me, I would show you my fangs. You see what I'm saying? But if you showed yourself to be kindly, I would turn into the little girl again and want protection and love and support. So again, it was my shadow self versus my light self, not reconciling the two.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. Wow, that's all I can say is wow. I remember where we were specifically before the last like little interruption. I had asked you, there's something I wrote down here and you said, I quote, I broke me. And you said you had a lot of pride. And so that's what I was asking you about. I love how you're able to take accountability, even with what you just said, you know, it's like a battle of your light and dark self. And you had to reconcile that, especially to now be in a loving marriage. And I wanted to ask you, how is the picker? Let me explain that. When we go through all of this trauma and, you know, it shows up in our relationships, we be picking them real wrong. And so how did you get to a point where you like, okay, I trust the picker. And of course that does not mean any relationship or marriage is perfect, because I'm sure there's still some walks and some days where it's like we got to do a lot of talking and a lot of let me get some space, you know. But how were you able to confidently pick them?
Because I picked me. That's where I think for the first time, even though me and my husband now, definitely an upgrade in my opinion.
Okay.
Definitely an upgrade. I met him in Iraq where our love was forbidden. Yes. And look, the story might seem messy, but it's like a beautiful chaos, right? Because I was going through a divorce. I met the love of my life and could not pursue
Because
him.
you were married?
Yes,
Okay.
because I was still married, and in Iraq, you can't have sex, you can't do any of that because it was against, you know, the command's orders. Obviously, women getting pregnant out there is unbecoming to the command, and it would dwindle down the man hours and the numbers.
Now,
So,
hold on. Is he an American man, your husband?
yes, he's from the South. He's from Alabama.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. You got a country man.
Yeah, I had
I love
to. Yeah, and he still opens the door for me still after 17 years. He's just he's a beautiful man. You go on my page and see my boo.
I'm gonna have to go check him out.
Yes. He is handsome. And the first time I met him, you know, there was this undeniable attraction where the time fully stopped. And I'm not going to get into all of the details, but time fully stopped. And that had never happened before, not even with my first husband, even though I definitely wanted to have my first son from him. And I loved him, but not this kind of love. It was different. It was just different. And I was fully just smitten for this man. His smile, the brightness of his face, he was like shining like the sun. Like,
I love it.
and so, this was in Iraq where we were in a high stressful situation where finding love was just not on the top of my list at all. I was going through it at the time. I was going through a divorce, separation, being away from my child for the first time. And that was devastating to me. I mean, still, if I talk about that too long, I will cry. I already know that about myself. And this has been it. My son is 19 years old, and I was still cry about that time being separated from him for 13 months. So when his name is Brandon, my husband's name is Brandon. When Brandon came along, time had stopped, and I was just like, where do I have capacity and space for this kind of love? I didn't even understand I needed to take a step back and really reevaluate my life and figure out what I was going to do next, because even at that time, my parents had my son, but they were threatening me to withhold him from me if I didn't give them money. They wouldn't let me talk to my son. I had bought them a house, and they were taking all my money, not paying my bills. It was terrible. So I was going through a lot of financial stuff. Whereas I left to Iraq in 2007. I joined the Marine Corps in 2001, right after 9/11. So 6 years had passed where I had become a little bit more independent and more financially stable. And I had depended on myself. Even though I would give my parents money, I still had money for myself. I still had my own sense of independence. And I saw my finances being just ripped apart, right? And that's like pulling from a child that come from the streets. You pull that financial security blanket up from under them, and you're leaving them bare in the dirt. So I'm desperate. I have this sense of desperate sensationality, and then here's this love that comes into my life that I feel in my heart, and I'm not prepared. I'm not ready for that. But we became friends quickly, and lovers even quicker. And we kept our relationship private for as long as we could, until he gave me the ultimatum here. He was like, listen, you can go back to your husband. I can't be with you like that. And I was like, trust me, I am not going back to him. But I had to show him. So I dropped those papers, dropped the papers quick. And he had never been married, didn't have any children. So I felt in my heart like, man, he's a catch. Like, he comes with no baggage. He comes with no problems. And all the things that we talked about as friends, I felt like, you hear my story, I can deal with what you got going on. So I can deal with that.
Right.
But not knowing that if I didn't deal with the things that I had been going through already.
Yep.
And so
you're gonna bleed on that man that didn't cut you.
Yes. Okay. And then not only that, his wounds had not completely healed. So he thinking, as a 26-year-old man, no kids, never been married, he has lots of money, he's good. He didn't think about himself as, what kind of man do you want to be for yourself? So when we met, he was still a traumatized boy because he had his own story. In my book, in the book that we wrote together, Principles for Change, he shares his sexual assault experience as a child. And knowing these things, us coming together, it wasn't a trauma bond, but it was definitely traumas meeting in a way where we connected. So his trauma overlapped my trauma, and that I wouldn't. Oh, you know what? I will say it was a trauma bond at first. But we had to unbound ourselves to come back together in a healthy way, and that process took many years. A lot of times we think as women, where these men, they seemingly have it all together, but when you peel the layers back and you start to see what are the actual issues, you realize that they are hurting too. You realize that they have insecurities too. And we can, in our own way, because we want to protect ourselves, stomp on their, progress. We could hinder a man from growth because our trauma won't allow them to grow. And so that's exactly what was happening after we came back from Iraq. It was immediate toxicity, and me seeing and recognizing what my parents went through. He didn't grow up with his parents in a 2-parent household. I did. And I saw how bad it could get. So I took it upon myself, even though I loved this man dearly, to leave. We moved in together with my son, and who he adopted as his son. But I had to leave to remove myself from a potentially toxic situation, because there started my growth of trying to break away from my toxic patterns and taking accountability for the choices that I had continued to make, i.e. keeping my parents in my life and allowing them to rule me and control me in a way that was just unhealthy. And anything they wanted, I would give in to their every whim, even though it was a detriment to me and me providing for my son. So I chose my parents over my son at some points. And then when I left my husband, at the time, just my boyfriend, we were living together and I left, I chose myself because I knew I didn't want this anymore. I knew I already had been married before and that ended in divorce, and I didn't want to repeat the same cycle. So I tried to break away in that way, but still not ready to deal with the things that I had dealt with in the past. And while I was in the Marine Corps, there were men and leaders that I had trusted that tried to sexually harass me, and broke my trust there as well. Some of them were very slick. One of them actually left me on the side of the road on the highway when I told him no. It was a gunnery sergeant. I was a lance corporal at the time. And he told me, he propositioned me for sex, and I was just totally just disgusted. You know, it's like, how this is a Black man I'm thinking is going to protect me, you know, from the racism that I was experiencing in the military, and from white men. And he comes on to me in a way where he's married, he has kids my age, and you know, it was very it was very nasty to me. There was nothing in there that made me feel safe. And at the time I was single, and I was all about trying to date an older man, but the way he came at me, he was married, and it felt real fatherly, and it reminded me of my abuse. And so it just turned me off completely. He saw that I was not with it, and he made up this excuse on the phone in the car when he was supposed to be taking me home, to drop me off on the highway. It literally 5-lane highway on the 5-9 in California. And I felt so terrible that again, the messages of I'm not worth being taken care of. And so the knowing that at the time, having a child, a male child at that, I knew I had to, coming back from Iraq, I knew with him being almost 3 years old, I had to make a change at some point to start bringing myself to a healthy place with first making the right choices for myself. So picking them, going back to what you asked, picking them came from picking me. And then when I chose myself, it helped me to reveal some of the things of what was going on with my husband and helping to be a mirror to him. And by him being a willing man and him being willing to change, he actually changed those toxic traits in himself as well. And we were able to just here recently, actually, to really fully enjoy our marriage the way it should. But it took many years to start coming to a place where we could really face who we became based on our trauma.
So good. And I love that you said he was willing, because a lot of people try to act like their trauma is just not there. Nope, it's you. It's so easy to point the finger at other people. But as they say, we got 3 more pointing back at us, and it definitely takes 2 to tango. And I love how you were able to kind of go back and revert what you said about like that time standing still and that connection that you had initially meeting each other. I found out through I was in therapy, and I've had different therapists for different things. This lady I really wanted to work with based on relationships, and I'm not talking about just like romantic relationships, my relationships in general. She taught me something, and I think you were able to speak to this without even knowing. But she said, you know, those sparks that you feel with people, it can mean different things, you know, and sometimes without us even realizing, it's a spiritual thing, to be honest. It's like something I've been through may really resonate with something you've been through, but we don't know that yet. We've just seen each other, right? So it's very like, how do I say it? It's something you can't see with your physical eye. And so that could have been, since you guys do share a similar trauma, right? Then what that was, of course, you guys are attracted to each other. That's a given. But I love how you were like, you know what, maybe it was a trauma bond at first, but you guys have made it work. You have similar experiences, but you guys are on that journey together. You've been able to come into a beautiful union. You stepped back, came back together, and you've done the individual work, still doing it, and then you're now doing some great work together with the book you've written, and just being honest about what these relationships look like, principles of change, how you've been able to change not only yourselves, but for each other in your relationship. And I just love that. That is a story that I think we all want to hear, especially people that have picked them wrong, to pick them off. And, we just want to hear that, okay, yeah, we both got some trauma, but can we make this thing work? We're both willing. So as you said in the comments, she said you're giving her hope, rather faith and love after having trust issues. She said it's absolutely beautiful, the growth together. I just think that is so wonderful. And that gives me hope, because I feel like my picker, I'm not going to talk bad about nobody, but I look back in hindsight, really do be 2020. So it's like, all right, Lord, I'm doing this work. What you got for me? And it's not in our time. You know what I'm saying? But I love to hear other people's experience. And I know that the work, whether I have a partner or not, is not in vain,
Yeah, that's true.
So, wanted to share that. And then I have some notes here where you've already said it. You told yourself, I got to grow up. I got to embody this name, become more wise. Your name means wise. You've done that. You had to become healthy, and also a little bit cautious. Like you said, the light and the dark work together. You don't want your ego or shadow self to be ruling everything, but it's there for a reason. Ego is there for a reason. It is to protect us to some level. It's like a really basic instinct that we all have, but should it be in the driver's seat? Absolutely not. So I just love everything you've had to say, because it's right along with my journey, my research, the things like you say, you can't ignore facts and statistics. People study human psychology, trauma, and behavior, and how all those things are linked. And your story really embodies all of that, So I just love when those connections happen. We're going to wrap it up real soon, but I hate that we have to, because it's been a wonderful just conversation. And I just love that we met. Can't wait to support you all and read your book, see what other things you have going on. I would love for you to share. I know you've touched on, you being an author, you and your husband co-wrote a book together, but please tell people how they can support you. And before you do that, actually, can you share, you've kind of alluded to this a little bit, but I do want you to talk about it a little bit more. You are a dancer, and I'm pretty sure that movement movement is really big when you're in a healing space, just moving the energy throughout your body. What do you do? What things do you do to bring you joy, to help you stay stable, to keep your mental health high? What are those things for you personally?
For me now, dancing is something I do in the kitchen while I'm cooking. I don't dance anymore as far as doing Zumba and all those things, but I do yoga. I have to move my body and stretch my body. These old Marine Corps knees don't function the way they used to, but I do my best. I have a forgiving mindset every day, just loving my body for what it's doing for me and appreciating what it's doing for me right now. So some of the things that I do is just glad tidings and appreciation. I hold myself. I love on myself daily. I play my recording, my record player. I love vinyls. And so I've been collecting those, and sometimes I'll just pop that on. I don't know if you can see it in the background.
Can you see it
right there?
Yeah.
I pop that on, and I'll do a little dance, and that's how my food turn out good.
I love it. You
My
got
voice.
a little love.
Yes, I put
dance.
all my love and energy into cooking. It's very therapeutic for me. I love the gratification I get when I am able to feed my friends and family. And I love yoga. I love to do stuff outside. I love the sun, and I love to travel. That is my peacemaker right there. I know a lot of people feel like, oh, if I had the funds to travel, you can get outside of your normal day-to-day and travel city to city. You don't have to go to another country or an island somewhere to grab some beach or a lake or some mountains. Get out in nature. I love to just find new experiences to help myself grow. And
Can I add
that's the
something to
journey
that
I've
real
been
quick?
on.
I
Yeah.
love that you shared how it doesn't have to be you spending all this money if you don't have it, right?
Hmm.
One time I just got the inkling to just do something different. I have a vehicle, but I said, I'm not driving today. I can't stand driving. I said, I'm gonna do a Lyft. I ordered a Lyft and I went downtown. I got me a Thai massage. And after that, I said, I'm hungry. Let me go walk and explore. We have so many nice
Yep.
restaurants in our area. And I said, let me just go try a different restaurant. When I tell
Yep.
you, I felt absolutely amazing. I felt like I was able to experience my
Yep.
city in a whole new way because I wasn't
Yep.
driving. I was feeling relaxed. Just very
Yes.
spontaneous to me. And I
Yes.
didn't even do it for the whole day because I had to go get my son from school eventually. But it was
Yeah.
so therapeutic for me. So I
Yeah.
had to share.
No, and that's where I'm coming from. Having a bite to eat, or I love theater. I love the theater. I love the arts. Obviously, I'm a poet. I love the arts. I love a good comedy show. I love to
Yeah.
laugh. That is therapy for me. Okay, if you see me, I'm smiling because I know that my life has so much promise, and when I smile, it's really coming from a genuine place of inner joy, because I know that anything I face here forward, I'm going to be victorious. I'm going to be magnificent at it. I'm going to be extraordinary from it. So it's not just necessarily a negative or a setback. For me, I take on life now as a personal challenge to growth. And so that's how I do. I go and do something for myself every week, every month, and then I try to expand that experience to the loved ones around me, and so I just live.
Yeah.
Now, how you can support JT Inspire, if you go to www.jtinspire.com, you can see a lot of the things that we are doing right now. We're working on a workbook, Two Principles for Change, and I have two principles for change. And we're moving into the virtual sector, you guys, and it's going to be a marvelous thing. We're going to launch here in the next month or two. I'm super excited. So I'm going to announce those things on my IG page, JT Inspire _ I'm looking for contracts. If you feel like my story or the journey with emotional intelligence is super important to the ones that you work with or your event, let me know. I'll come and speak. I have some prices on my website, but those have changed here recently because a sister done came up.
Come
You know,
on.
I'm making more
Come
money,
on.
so
Look, thank you
my
for blessing
time
us
is
with your presence.
valuable.
Yes.
And so that's going to change here shortly with the launch. So if you want to reach out to me, email me at tanikirichard@jtinspire.com. Well, you can go to the website, find my
Yes.
number, find my email. It's all there. And it's really me you'll be negotiating with. And I really appreciate in advance any business that comes this way, because the thing that we are doing here is trying to change lives. Principles for Change is about inspiration being an action. And so there is something that we are called to do, which is healing ourselves so that we can heal the world. And that's my mission in life.
I love it. I just want to say you are a phenomenal woman. When I think about you and I hear your story, that poem by Maya Angelou comes to my head. And
Oh,
I'm just so proud of you. And I look at you now as like a big sis. I don't care what you say. And that is not something I say to just anybody. I would say that right now.
oh, thank
Okay.
you. Thank
Um,
you.
so I just want to thank you for your time and agreeing to come on the podcast and sit in the soul seat and just to bear your soul and to share your story and to be a light. I know that anybody watching the replay is going to agree with me. So if you made it to this point, definitely put some sunshine emojis in the comments. Y'all go to Taniki's website. Her first name is Taniki. Last name Richard. And that is her email, tanikirichard@jtinspire.com. And this will be up on YouTube as well. So wherever you're listening to this at, just look in the description box for her contact information as well. So thank you for just being a light, Taniki. I thoroughly
Thank
enjoyed this.
you.
And you will be hearing from me again. I don't know when, but I'm just happy that we connected. Thank you so much.
Yes, so happy to see you. Thank you.
Yes, have an amazing day.
Peace and joy.
Thank you so much. Y'all, that wraps up this episode 35 of Soul Seat Conversations, a mental health podcast for resilient humans on the grow. We exist to share stories of resilience, build global community, and for you to discover new ways to thrive via the brave voices of others. I am so glad, even with all the technical glitches, that y'all stayed with us. If you're just joining, this episode will be up on YouTube in its full capacity. So look out for that. And y'all just send some love to Taniki and everything that she's doing. I think she's phenomenal. I know y'all gonna get tired of me saying it, but listen, if we can have all these different opinions and negative things to say, then we deserve to flip it, be positive. And when people have a bright light, when they're doing some wonderful things in the community, in the world, they've transmuted the things they've gone through, we deserve to lift them up and give them their flowers right now while they can smell them. So I really appreciate all of you under the sound of my voice that are in the comments, that have been interacting. We just here at Soul Rise Essentials want to say thank you. What up, y'all? I see y'all in the comments. Man, stick around. We do this every month because y'all know I got a lot going on, so I can only do this once a month, okay? But if you felt like this was wonderful and you want to know, I wonder who else Soliel had in the Soul Seat, head on over to YouTube, type in Soul Seat Conversations. That's SOL Seat Conversations podcast, and every single episode will pop up there. Shout out to the best family, the Soul Tribe family. I will see y'all next month. Peace.